Okay, so we are in Matthew 27, and we left off, the last thing that we really talked about was that Jesus had cried, "It's finished," and he gave up his spirit. And I thought that was very interesting that none of them say he died. Not one of the accounts. All of the phrases used to give us the impression of the willingness of Jesus to let himself die. He was in control to the very end. No one took his life away. He freely gave it away. It was a voluntary act. So upon his death, we got to this part that several things occurred. We are right at verse 51 of chapter 27, and I'm going to finish reading this section, beginning in verse 51. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks split. The tombs broke open, and the bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs, and after Jesus' resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many people. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, "Surely he was the Son of God." Many women were there watching from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee to care for his needs. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebedee's sons. So we're going to get to this part. Several things occurred. Unexplainable things occurred at Jesus' death. One of those things was the temple. The veil of the temple was torn from top to bottom. There was also a violent earthquake, and people came alive that were previously dead and made appearances. Okay, so this is interesting, but I want to talk for just a second about the veil itself. The thickness of this veil, I know when you're thinking of a veil, you think of something very sheer and light. It is 9 centimeters thick. Of course, for an American, we have no idea what that means. How thick is 9 centimeters? That's about 3.5 inches. About 3.5 inches thick. This is no veil. It's a massive. It was 60 feet long, 60 feet, and 30 feet wide. 30 feet wide. So this is one very hefty veil, okay? What did this veil separate? That's right, the Holy of Holies and the holy place. Okay, so the fact that it was split from the top to the bottom means that no human would be able to do that. The thickness of this, as tall as it was, the fact that it was split from the top to the bottom was a divine act of God. It was. It's also symbolism. Who was it that got to enter the Holy of Holies once a year? The high priest. And we know who the high priest is right now. It's Caiaphas. What was he supposed to do when he went in there one time a year? Offer a sacrifice for what? The sins of the people. Okay, it's amazing to me that this is the same guy that has been scheming on how they can murder Jesus, an innocent man. This guy's job was to go into the Holy of Holies once a year, present sacrifices for the sins of all the people. Okay? Now this veil has been torn from the top to the bottom. We don't need a high priest anymore. Who is our high priest? Jesus is. The veil being torn was a symbol of the opening for man into God's presence and into heaven through Jesus and his death. Okay? So, we have had darkness. We've had this veil that has come apart from the top to the bottom. Now we have an earthquake. The earth itself is going to respond to the death of Jesus. The earthquake caused stones to move, opening of tombs that had once previously been sealed, and then there were saints of the old that exited these and walked among the people, okay? And who they are, we have no idea. The Bible doesn't go into detail about who these people are, but we know that they came out of the tombs and walked around for a period of time. It's interesting. And so after all of this has occurred, these earthquakes, this darkness, the veil being torn, the centurions who have been there guarding Jesus, and we're thinking there's about 4 guards there because we know that from the way they divided up his clothes. They're looking at all of this, and they're witnesses to all of this, and they are moved, and they come to a conclusion that surely Jesus was the Son of God. Now, this is my opinion. Do they really believe he is the Son of God, or do they just believe that he is a Son of God? He's righteous, he's remarkable, possibly innocent at this point, or do they just, this is a holy person as well. All of these things are happening. I think that's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. What form of belief did they come to at this point? What did they truly believe about Jesus? So the centurion soldiers are there. Who else is present? Who else is present at this point? There's a bunch of women. They're all named Mary. Yes, we've got all these women in attendance. There's actually 4 of them. Even though Matthew only mentions 3, there are 4, because according to John's account, Mary, the mother of Jesus, is there, because the conversation that is had between John and Mary. So she is there too. But Mary Magdalene is there, Mary, the wife of Clopas, Salome, the mother of James and John. And can you imagine, if you're the mother of Jesus, what you are feeling at this time? Matthew says that they stood at a distance, they stood away, but John says they were near. I think probably for a while she did stand at a distance, and when Jesus talked to him, she was there, close to the cross itself. But I can't imagine what a mother is feeling. If you look back at Luke chapter 2, okay, I want you to look at it. Look at Luke 2. This is when Jesus was presented at the temple, all right? And these words were spoken to Mary. Luke 2, verse 35. I'll start in 34 because Simeon has something to say. Verse 34, then Simeon blessed them and said to Mary, his mother, this child is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be spoken against, so that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your soul too. He told, Jesus is going to suffer. He's going to suffer deep anguish, but Mary is going to suffer too. Like a sword in her soul, she's going to suffer. I can't imagine. That kind of sends chills. If you have a son of your own, you know how that would make you feel. So she is right there. She's very close to this. I'm sure she was there at the death of Jesus. So let's look at the burial now. I'm going to begin reading Matthew in verse 57. As evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who had himself become a disciple of Jesus. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body, and Pilate ordered that it be given to him. Joseph took the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and placed it in his own new tomb that he had cut out of the rock. He rolled a big stone in front of the entrance to the tomb, and he went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. I think the first thing that really sticks out to me is it says that Joseph had cut out the rock. He physically did it. Did he do it then? Had he done it in preparation maybe for his own burial at some point? This was his tomb and would be his tomb, and now he is giving it to Jesus. It's interesting. Once he's dead, he goes to Pilate, he requests the body, and he basically is going to try to give him a proper burial. We've known and we've talked about this before, that he was a disciple of Jesus and he was also a member of the Sanhedrin. And whether or not he was present the day that Jesus was sentenced to death, we're not real sure about that. But now we find something else about him. He's a rich man. He's wealthy because he has his own tomb, and that was rare. And so he is the owner of Jesus's tomb. He must have requested the body between Jesus' death, which happened at 3 p.m., but before 6 p.m., because 6 p.m. would have been the beginning of the Sabbath, and no work could be performed. So we've got this small window of time that the body has got to come down. He's got to go to Pilate, request the body, get the body, prepare it for burial, wrap it, and all it talks about here is the linen cloth that was going to go on him. And so Pilate gives the body to Joseph. John's account tells us there's somebody else there helping. Nicodemus is there. In John's account, that's in chapter 19, verse 38 through 42. Nicodemus is there. So they are not able. Now, Sunday morning when DC was talking about this, he talked about all the burial spices that go into the body. They were not able to finish that job. They were not able to finish it. And that is why those women are going to be coming to the tomb as quickly as possible, was to finish the burial process, okay? Joseph is going to wrap that body, place it in the tomb, and then he rolls a stone in place. And you can visualize it because you've seen 1,000 pictures of what it supposedly looks like, that there's this big stone that's rolled in place. It says the stone was probably flat and round. It was rolled to one side of the entrance. It could be rolled back if somebody needed to go in, and rolled in place to keep other people. And these who's there watching all this, 2 of those women, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. I don't know who the other Mary is. I'm pretty sure it's not Jesus' mother. I can eliminate her, But they are there and they are watching that body was placed inside that tomb. They knew where the tomb was too. And there's some significance there because they have got to go, they want to go back and finish that burial process once the Sabbath is over. So, he's properly buried. Now let's see what happens at the end of this chapter, the guard at the tomb. Verse 62. The next day, the one after preparation day, the chief priest and the Pharisees went to Pilate. Sir, they said, we remember that while he was still alive, that deceiver said that after 3 days, I will rise again. So give the order for the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may come and steal the body and tell the people that he has been raised from the dead. This last deception will be worse than the first. Take a guard, Pilate answered. Go, make the tomb as secure as you know how. So they went and they made the tomb secure by putting a seal on the stone and posting the guard. Now they're saying a guard. Guard could consist. That's not the word I'm looking for. It was more than one. It was more than one, okay? Where do I have how many it was? 8 to 10. It could be up to 8 to 10 people guarding this tomb, okay? The next day, it's just begun at sunset. And so the chief priests and the Pharisees go to Pilate, and they're very concerned about this tomb that is not being guarded at this time. And they cannot let one night pass. How many days are they concerned about? 3. That's what Jesus said was going to happen. Okay, so they believe that Jesus' disciples are going to come and steal this body. Where are the disciples at? Well, they scattered. They're hiding someplace. I don't think they're going to try to go and get the body of Jesus. They're too concerned about all of that. Pilate, he's like, okay, I need to avoid any kind of vandalism, any kind of false claims of a resurrection. And so, all right, I'll let you have the guard. When it says the phrase, this last deception will be worse than the first, that needs a little explaining. The first deception was that the people believed Jesus to be the Messiah. That's deception number 1. And the last will be that they believe him to be resurrected from the dead. So it has been difficult enough to deal with the first deception, especially because it was true. All right. But what would they do if they have to deal with a miraculous event of a body that disappears? It kind of makes me laugh because they not only will have to deal with a missing body, but one that walks and talks and is seen by a bunch of people. Okay, they're going to try to control the situation. I love it. It's very human for us to try to control it all. We want to control it too. We're going to do everything we can that this does not happen. Like raising our children. We've done everything we possibly can to make sure that this child is doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And how much control? We have some given to us by God. But who's in control? He is. He's in control. He's been in control all this time. No matter what Pilate decides to do, no matter what the chief priests decide to do, God's in control of this situation. Jesus has promised, I'm only going to be in there 3 days and I'm coming out. And he keeps his promises. It doesn't matter what they've decided. It's going to happen. Pilate's like, I got to get rid of these guys. He says, take the guard and secure it.
Still thinking what his wife said.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, this is true. This is true. Lonnie firmly believes that these guards are Roman guards. He does, because of how the tomb was sealed. What does it mean to seal the tomb? So I got online and I started reading about sealing the tomb. What they do is they take a cord and they stretch it across the rock. And then they secure each end with a sealing clay. And it is stamped with a Roman stamp on either side. So this cord is stretched across that to prove nothing's going to happen. This has been sealed by a Roman seal. Let me just read what it says. Finally, the clay plaques were stamped with the official signet of the Roman governor. Because the seal was Roman, it verified the fact that Christ's body was protected from vandals by nothing less than the power and authority of the Roman Empire. Anyone trying to move that stone would have broken the seal and thus incurred the wrath of Roman law and power. The consequences for breaking that seal were severe, even could be death. Would Christ's disciples have broken the seal? They're off hiding somewhere. They're not going to break the seal. They're not there. So the seal is there. It's funny, Matthew talks about that the seal was there. But when they get there, that stone has been rolled away. Where's the seal? It's gone. It's been broken. It has been broken. So let's get to Resurrection, chapter 28. I'll start reading verse 1. After the Sabbath at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you. So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and they ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. Greetings, he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. And then Jesus said to him, do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee where they will see me. This is a good day. Okay, it's the first day of the week. It's Sunday. Same two women, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. We have several other Marys in here. Mary, the other Mary, and the other Mary. And so apparently there were a lot of Marys in the Bible, and this time they're just referred to as the other Mary. Okay, so Luke will also tell us that there were other women there also, that there were other women. Matthew's account is always very general, but Mark and Luke tell us that the other women came to finish the embalming of the body. That's why they were there. They were coming to finish the job that could not be completed because of a time restraint before. So it is fitting that Matthew specifically tells us about two women, because these had also been at the cross, and they had also seen where they had laid the body of Jesus. So, as the women approached the tomb, a great earthquake shook the area. There has been a lot of earthquakes lately. Here is another. But the way that Matthew reads it makes one think that an angel coming to the tomb was the cause of the earthquake. It was the cause of it, yeah. The angel came, he rolled away the stone, and this allowed anyone that wanted to come into the tomb and look inside, and he is sitting atop the stone.
You think the guard went in?
Maybe that's why it was rolled back, so everybody could see. I know how it says they were like dead men.
Sounds like they passed out.
That they could do nothing at all because they were so afraid of this scene that was going on. Is Jesus in there? He's gone. He's already gone. Jesus didn't need a stone moved out of the way for this to happen. He didn't. The resurrection would have occurred with or without a stone in place, with or without a seal in place. Matthew goes into great detail about the appearance of this angel and the effect that it had on these men. It says, it uses words like as lightning and white as snow. I mean, how would you describe lightning? A flash, bright, would you say it was white light or gold light, something that bright in appearance. And snow, now y'all can relate to this because now you have seen snow. A couple of weeks ago, we had snow and I had pictures of it on my phone. What is snow like when you come out and the sun's shining off of it? It's bright. It's so bright that when you ski, you have to put sunscreen on. It glistens too. It just glistens. It's almost like there's pieces of glass or glitter on top of that snow. So this is interesting that he uses the snow. Yeah. So it can burn your eyes. And the guards are still there. They see the angel. They're afraid. And I think they're probably in some state of shock because they're like dead men. Dead men don't talk or move. So I'm wondering, Dorothy says they all passed out. Maybe they did. They've got some explaining to do. Maybe that's what they're thinking about, you know. The angel's going to respond not to the guards, but to the women. And he tries to assure them with some comforting words. Don't be afraid. And that's the first thing Jesus is going to say. Don't be afraid of this. I know who you're seeking. You're looking for Jesus who has been crucified. He's not here. He's risen. Come on in. Look for yourselves, you know. He's going to try to persuade them to belief. He's not here. He told you he was going to rise. You need to believe what he says. You know, Jesus promised you this. When did he promise them that? Well, Matthew 12, verse 40, Matthew 16, verse 21, Matthew 17, verses 22 and 23, Matthew 20, verse 19. Over and over and over again, he has said, I will rise again. I will rise again. I will rise again. I want you to know. Now he says, now that I'm trying to persuade you to believe everything that he has told you, I'm going to show you proof. Come on in. Come into the tomb and take a look. And tell me what you're going to see. Look around for the body. Well, it's not there. Because Jesus has risen from the dead. He wants them to believe in the resurrection. And here I'm going to offer you proof. And now one more thing I need you to do. What do you need to go do? Tell it. Share it. I mean, is this not going to be the words of Jesus? Pretty soon before this chapter ends, he's going to say, I need you to go and share it. You have just witnessed the most incredible thing ever in the whole history of man, and you cannot keep that to yourself. I need you to go share it. When you think of the promises of Jesus for us, it may be hard to believe it all. But if he told them that he would rise again, and in fact, he has risen from the dead, we have every right to believe all the other promises that he has given to us. And he always keeps his word. I like that. So these women, they wanted to get to the disciples as quickly as possible. Why? Because they have something to share and they can hardly contain it. When you have good news to share, how hard is it? I love it when somebody tells you something really happy or something good. They say, oh, don't tell anybody. I'm like, you just take all the fun out of it. I want to tell everybody. As soon as I see Dolly, I'm going to tell Dolly. And as soon as I see Mary at home, I'm going to tell Mary. I'm going to tell the dog. I'm going to tell Scott. I'm going to tell everybody. They have something really great that they want to share. And he has told them you can. You can tell everybody about it. And they are truly excited. They're so excited they run. There's not very many times in my life that I run anymore. I mean, what would make you run? What would make you run to tell? It would have to be momentous for me to run. Okay? It's interesting that they run, and who should be standing before them but Jesus himself? I'm sure this is hard for them to take in. Take a deep breath and breathe back out, and just fall down on your face at his ankles, you know. They fall down at his feet to worship him. It's a great moment for them. It's a great moment for Jesus. And then he's just going to reinforce the angel's words. I'm going to tell it again. I want you to go tell my brothers that I shall see them in Galilee. This is the first time that he hasn't referred to them as his disciples. He refers to them as brothers. He does. There's a relationship that has changed here. When we meet Jesus face to face in baptism, you become my sisters, and they become my brothers. We are a family. We are connected like no other family in the world is connected. And I love the fact that he calls them brothers. He's going to, when he finally sees them and he gets to see them, he's going to encourage them. He's going to offer his forgiveness to them. He's going to give them the tasks that are ahead for them. This is a big day. This is a big day for everybody. We got to take care of these poor guards first. So here we go. Verse 11 of chapter 28. While the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. They also could not contain what had just occurred. I can't keep it a secret. When the chief priests had met with the elders and devised a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money, telling them, you are to say that his disciples came during the night and stole him away while we were asleep. If this report gets to the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble. That's interesting. I don't know how they're going to do that, but okay. So the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed, and this story has been widely circulated among the Jews to this very day.
So they broke several of the great commandments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They did that one little paragraph.
One little paragraph. Yes, that one little paragraph they did. So you think,
I think that's the reason they're worried.
right now they don't have a body,
They cried.
and they were there, and they were standing there, and the tomb is empty, and they're like, oh, okay, what are we going to do? You know, what are we going to do? You think about everything they have done to try to get rid of Jesus. They were sneaky. They used Judas, you know. They have an illegal trial with false witnesses to convict him.
Well, that goes on today.
They used slander to persuade Pilate to crucifixion. And now they're going to use bribery to silence the truth. They could try everything. They're going to fail, but they're going to try it. I am sure when the guards came and told them what happened, they were desperately worried men, okay? And they thought that this newly formed plan is going to work, okay? It's going to take a very large sum of money. I love it. A large sum of money to bribe these soldiers. And again, it makes you wonder, where did all this money come from? Somehow they came up with it out of the treasury, probably out of the treasury. And it's interesting that if there was truth to this story, then no money really needed to be paid. Did they actually go to sleep?
Not
No.
if they were decent farmers.
That's right. Not they were decent at all. They were all awake, okay? Because basically, if they'd been asleep, they wouldn't have known anything had happened anyway. It doesn't.
If you're guard and anything happens to your prisoners, you're.
Yeah, you're in trouble. It doesn't seem plausible that a large stone would have been rolled away and a body taken and nobody heard anything. Nobody saw anything, nobody heard anything. The whole entire story is a lie. The truth is that Jesus' body wasn't there because it had been raised by the power of God, and the resurrection is a fact. We heard DC talking about that. You can come up with all these ideas. Even religious people have said that. And it's not true. It's simply not true. Another note is that the Sanhedrin agreed to protect these soldiers if the news gets around to Pilate. If he finds out, we're going to take care of it for you. Don't you worry. We'll appease the governor. We're going to cover for these soldiers. So it makes you wonder if Pilate had heard what Pilate would have done. Did Pilate hear? Did Pilate know what was going on? It's very interesting. But I love the fact that Matthew says it's been widely circulated among the Jews to this very day.
And I think this brings into to remember that Pilate said, "I washed my hands.
Oh, yeah.
I'm through it."
I'm through with it. Yeah, that's true. So even today you hear about people that make up excuses for the resurrection. And Matthew says that that's going to occur. Okay, so let's look at this last little bit. I am actually going to finish this today. Wow. Okay. Verse 16. Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age." All right. So Jesus is going to meet the remaining 11 at a specific location that apparently they know about. They are apparently aware of this mountain in Galilee, and they go there. When they see him, of course, they worship him. But Matthew notes that some doubted. So I don't know if they are referring to, I don't know what they're referring to, Thomas, perhaps. But then the very next verse says that he came to them. Maybe he was at a distance, and they were like, "It sounds like him, yeah." And when they got closer to him, they believed. That could be part of the issue. The very first thing that I thought of was a class reunion. If you've been to a class reunion lately, you see somebody get out of their car out in the parking lot, and you're like, "Who is that person? Do I even know that person?" And then as you get closer to them and you start talking to them and you figure out who they are, you're like, "Oh, yeah, I can kind of tell who you are from that." And I wonder if that's how it was with Jesus. Like, is that really him? And then when you get close enough to him, you're like, "Oh, yeah, talks like him, acts like him. This is him," kind of thing. But I just wondered if that was what it was. So at this particular meeting, he is going to relieve their hearts of any doubt about that. And then he's going to assure them of basically three things. All right. The first one is he assures them of his power. His power. And it's a given. The power to overcome and conquer death is a big deal. And he tells them that all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. I can do whatever I want. You know, I have overcome death. I can do whatever I want. He says, and now you are servants of the master that has authority over heaven and earth. It was beyond questioning. The second thing he does is he gives out a job assignment. And he says, go and make disciples of all nations. Well, how do you make disciples of all nations? I mean, could it be any more specific? You baptize them in my name. That is how you make disciples of all nations. It is incredible to me how people can get around the very words spoken by Jesus here. It is amazing. Baptism is a part of becoming a disciple of Jesus. It's not an after thing. That is part of it. There's nothing gray about this statement at all. He goes on further as he says, there needs to be some teaching done. Okay? You need to teach. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. So teaching is a huge part. It goes on before baptism. It goes on after baptism. It's still going on for me today. Always. We know that there are other steps involved in baptism. When you look at the Gospels as a whole, you can see that there are other steps in the baptism process. There's repentance. There's a change of heart. All of those things happen with teaching too. But that also tells you if there's a change of heart and there is repentance, can a child be baptized? They haven't learned they've done anything wrong. I mean, that pretty much eliminates the baptism of a child. But if you study your Bible as a whole, and it works together to help you see how you can achieve salvation. Something to note is that this making of disciples is for who? Who is it for? All nations. Everybody. It's for everybody. All races, all colors, all languages. Prejudice against any race or any class of people is totally out of character for those who claim to be a disciple of Christ. Totally out of character. Jesus says it's for everybody, for every nation. And the last thing he says is he promises them and he promises us his presence. It would have been a staggering thought that Jesus had just told them to go out and conquer the world for him. I need you to go do this. But he quickly follows it with a comforting thought. I am with you. I'm going to be with you. I have been with you on this earth. I will continue to be with you in spirit. You will never be alone. You will never be alone. When I look at this up here, at the very beginning, his name meant God with us. And here at the very end of Matthew, he says, and I am with you. I have been with you this whole time. I'm going to be with you always, always, always. You will never be without me. I love that. That's very comforting to know that he's still here. He's still here with us. And that's a promise. That's another promise of him. Okay, I have come to the end of Matthew